AITA for telling my daughter to read less? She's reading a book at home during the holidays. That's too much for you? What is it about a sport that's not a waste of time, while reading a book is? There's a difference between having a conversation about focusing more on your studies, vs a conversation on why her hobby is bad. You had the bad hobby conversation. And her hobby isn't bad, you just have some weird hang up on reading. Bizarre. YTA. YTA. She is a 22-year-old woman, not a child. She is definitely not the only person to take up reading in earnest since the beginning of COVID. It brings her joy and serenity during a period when there is very little to be found. You invalidated her coping skills and her happiness. YTA, so she works, is going to school and manages to live on her own. Seems like her reading isn't causing any issues in her life. The only issue is you. YTA, and a massive asshole. Many parents would love to see their children or family members read more. It's a healthy, educational, and fun hobby with zero impact on you. What is wrong with you? What do you want her to do? Something more serious like watching TV or something? YTA, how is her reading hurting you exactly? How is this even real? YTA. Info. Why do you consider a sport to me more productive than reading? If it's just because it's exercise, I would like to point out that reading books is just as important for stimulating your brain, which is also needed. YTA. I don't even, just YTA. YTA. You clearly are the type of person who thinks arts are less important than science or sports. She would not have more benefits if she went running after works. YTA. Reading is not a waste of time, that's not really gonna give her anything. She's a grown woman on holiday from her job who can spend her free time doing whatever she likes. A quote from George R.R. Martin will help explain. A reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies, said Hojan. The man who never reads lives only one. YTA, a massive asshole. Your daughter has a very healthy hobby and truly enjoys reading her books. Instead of inviting her to try something new, your only advice is to read less. Maybe there's a reason she likes to get lost in fantasy novels. Have you even bothered asking? She came to you with excitement about reading, and the best you could do was humor her for a short while and then promptly shut her down. It seems like you haven't gotten over her dropping out the first time around. The problem lies with you, don't make it about her. YTA. Why does your brain work like this? Like, please explain to me why your brain's dumb. YTA. She reads for a hobby. Would you prefer she played video games? YTA. She's probably reading even more right now to tune you out. YTA. Maybe you could try reading a book. You might learn something. Like how? YTA. YTA. Would you prefer she be this invested in drugs or hard cock? Reading is safe, normal, and harmless. She isn't neglecting anything or adversely affecting those around her. YTA. She isn't neglecting her life or job. If reading is her hobby, then you don't have to add your opinion. YTA. Maybe if you read more you wouldn't need to ask? Sounds like she just reads during times a lot of other young people would just be on their phones or watch TV. Reading books is much more beneficial and a great interest that will develop her vocabulary and knowledge on various topics. She will be a better writer and conversationalist for reading a lot. Her being able to read can develop reading skills that will be useful for her studies too, such as retaining information, being able to maintain focus for longer, etc. You have absolutely no reason to be this bothered by it. Besides, she might just be a naturally fast reader. I learned to speed read as a child without even trying. Some of just do read a lot faster than other people. YTA, you can't pick your children's hobbies and interests for them. Your behavior is just making your daughter resentful towards you. You're just turning something positive into a problem and an argument for no reason. YTA. People who read regularly in different genres have a large and fantastic vocabulary along with great critical thinking skills. Please ease up on the judging. You sound like a proud parent with that one hang-up that could damage your relationship with her. YTA. Simply, YTA. You're so proud of her of being an independent adult. But get mad at her being an independent adult practicing her own hobbies? Of all of the things a parent may have to try and intervene in for their child, drugs, partying, excessive gaming, excessive eating, catfishing, MLMs, pregnancy, Scientology, hanging out at elementary schools, you decided reading. Reading is the one flaw in your child you cannot tolerate. Reading is leading them to the path of ruin and impairing their growth in life. Sometimes good parents can also be stupid parents. You, madam, are being stupid. YTA. YTA, are you somehow jealous that she is such a reader? Come on, seriously YTA, she's going to school, has a steady job in her own place, it's pretty clear she is managing her life fine. YTA, I'm relatively successful and finish a book a day through Audible, when walking or gardening or cooking, or hardbacks. Jesus, most parents would kill for that problem. YTA, what on earth is the problem with reading, no matter how much you do it? I can see how you might worry about her if she's not socializing as much, but if you do have concerns for her mental health, you're certainly not phrasing it that way. YTA. Reading has great impact on people. It exposes them to different ideals, mindsets, experiences, and language use. It's a great hobby. Her hobby isn't hurting anyone. She's an adult. If she wants to read, she can read. Leave her alone and mind your business. YTA. Why is reading less worthwhile than any other hobby? She can't work or study 24/7. She needs time to relax, and if this is the way she chooses, then what's the harm in that? YTA. Reading has been proven to have a large number of benefits, even if she's reading fiction. I think perhaps you are the one in need of a wake-up call. Go out to Google Scholar and search benefits of reading and educate yourself before you destroy the relationship with your daughter any further. YTA. There are lots more terrible ways she could be spending her time. Like partying, drugs, alcohol, stuff like that. Just because her hobby is not something you would do doesn't mean it is terrible. She is a human being with different interests than you, and that is okay. And it is possible to read a book a day if you read fast. Which she probably does since she reads so much. YTA. It is not your place to even think that BS. If she wants to read, let her read FFS. Stop wearing yourself as a hat and back off. YTA. I get what you're saying, and I'd be on board if she was living under your roof eating your food. But she's not. You said she has a job and lives in her own. You are no longer entitled to intervene in her life. Obviously, parents are still allowed to have concerns, but you've already communicated your concern. It's time to drop it unless her life takes a serious nosedive. I'm just going to say that if it's one of the translated Chinese fantasy novels I'm thinking about, they are extremely popular in certain niche fandoms, and she probably has a community to talk to about them, or will if she hasn't yet. Jesus. Maybe you were wrong. That's the understatement of the year. She is an adult and this is her time she is using. Not yours. YTA. You sound like the biggest just no, and I suggest you read some of those threads and maybe read some parenting books on how to support your kids. YTA. She isn't doing anything wrong. Reading is something she can learn from and enjoy. You can't force her to study all the time. Just because she doesn't want to watch TV or surf the internet all the time, that doesn't mean she is wasting her time. Just because you can't handle books, that doesn't mean you should prevent her from enjoying them, you ignorant asshole. She's an adult and she's old enough to choose her own hobbies, so stop forcing her to do what you want her to do. She's not a kid anymore despite your attempts to control her and force her to live the way you want, so back off. If you were as smart as she is, you'd understand the value of books. YTA. You sound like you don't love or even like your daughter, and sound uneducated. YTA. Stop trying to control your daughter and get her to do what you want vs what she wants. It's her life. She's an adult and she obviously get a lot from reading. Maybe you should start reading and learn to broaden your small mind. YTA. Growing up, my parents were always trying to get me to read more, and I thought there was a growing stigma that kids these days don't read physical books enough and are becoming increasingly illiterate and should go to libraries more. This is my first time hearing about a kid reading too much instead of not enough. How bizarre. Info: if you are worried about her studies, how are sports more beneficial? They could take up more of her time than reading. And sports have schedules for practice and games. Reading is an activity that can fit around your schedule. She can stop at any time for homework, but sports mean there is a team you let down of you suddenly ditch. YTA. I don't even know where to start with this one. Really? Too much reading? Really? She's enjoying her hobbies too much? Really? She isn't using her time the way that you would? She's an adult, and you're still helicoptering. You are the asshole. Reading is not a waste of time. You sound like my paternal grandmother, and that is very much a bad thing. YTA. At the start of lockdown last March, I was a full-time master's student, part-time tutor for the university and part-time market research interviewer. My typical day consisted of writing my thesis from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., conducting tutorials for an hour before logging in for my market research shift from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. I still managed to read at least one book every few weeks for fun, and exercise on weekends too. Be grateful that your daughter has a passion that keeps her sane during a pandemic. A lot of people have succumbed to depression now that they have little to be happy about. You should also be proud that she's actually using her brain rather than idly scrolling through social media. YTA. Sincerely, a lifelong bookworm. Info: how are her grades? YTA. Reading isn't inherently less worthwhile than any other hobby she might have, and as she has a steady job and is in school, it's pretty clear that her reading isn't negatively affecting the rest of her life. The only issue here is you. What if your daughter cut down her reading time, and takes up a sport like you suggested, but she hates it? Would you expect her to carry on with it, even though she doesn't like it, just because you consider it more worthwhile? Sports just aren't enjoyable for everyone, and that's okay. Your daughter is entitled to spend her downtime doing something she likes. YTA. She enjoys her hobby. It enriches her life. She's not harming anyone, least of all you. She's a grown woman who is entitled to decide how to spend her free time without parental consent or approval. YTA. Would you rather her do drugs? YTA. I could understand it if your concern was centered on uni studies, but it's not. You can claim to high heaven it's just about your concern for her studies, but it's clearly not when in the comments you keep saying she could do something productive and suggest exercise. She can walk and read at the same time or listen to audiobooks. It's what I do on my walks. Why are you so hyper-fixated on her reading? I read 201 books last year and somehow still go as in my uni classes because you can do both. YTA because you're not coming from a place of genuine concern. You're coming from a place of control. You want her to do other things, and none of it is motivated by current issues. Is her health deteriorating? Is she failing right now? Is she isolating herself from friends? Is she not helping around the house, cleaning herself, working, eating, etc.? Then back off. You need to consider the wild possibility that during a pandemic, when normal life is on hold, she is using books to live vicariously. And if you want to at least help her to branch out in what she reads, find some lit that overlaps her interests and read it together, showing an interest in her, rather than controlling disdain. YTA. I built my language skills from reading fiction and it helped me tremendously for uni. English is my second language and it's the medium of instruction at my uni program, microbiology, so I credit my academic survival to all the novels that I read. Fiction helps build empathy and understanding context of areas that are unfamiliar to you. Unless she's not pulling her weight at home, leave her reading alone. YTA. Reading is a wonderful thing, and something that seems to be falling by the wayside more and more as technology advances. It should be encouraged, not looked down on. Also, reading has many benefits for your brain. In fact, people who read are less likely to get Alzheimer's and dementia. She's 22, OP. You need to step back and let her be an adult, and that means not trying to micromanage her time. If reading brings her joy in this time of COVID, then let her enjoy it. Instead of complaining, maybe it is time you picked up a book and lost yourself and your worries in another world. YTA. I am pretty sure just like you consider reading a waste of time, she considers talking to you a waste of time and yet she still manages to. YTA. Full stop. I read all the time and if anyone said I read too much I would not be responsible for my response. And also please ask her what her Goodreads name is because I need more friends and I will cheer her on since you apparently can't. YTA. Reading is a fantastic and very healthy hobby. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you'd have an issue with the amount of reading she did if she hadn't already dropped out once before. Are you mostly concerned that she might be totally neglecting her studies? YTA. I just don't get why you're so fixed on it that you're pushing your daughter away. What is she doing so bad? What else is she supposed to do in a pandemic while at home? Or what other 10 minutes hobby there are that can be done in between breaks from work? Also, I think you're wrong when you say reading is time wasted because to your daughter it's not. It's how she relaxes after a day of work/uni. Some drink a glass of wine and watch a movie, she reads. What is so bad about that? YTA. I can read a full fantasy novel in 4 hours. The average person spends that much time surfing the internet a day. Would you be as worried if her face was in front of her phone instead of a book? Until you have proof that her hobby is affecting her schoolwork, then let her do what she likes. Everyone is just doing what they can to feel a little bit better right now. And send me her username if she's on Reddit. I've got some great fantasy recs. She's an adult, she has a job, she pays her own rent, she spends time with her family, and had a conversation with you, so she's not neglecting relationships. Where is the problem? YTA. Did you ever consider that she's learning from everything she's reading? Plus, this may be her way of coping with the stress of the pandemic. Would you rather she use dangerous and unhealthy coping mechanisms because you're pushing her? YTA. Reading is not a waste of time and reading fiction is no less worthy than reading non-fiction. YTA. What exactly do you do with your free time that is so much better than reading? YTA. She's reading. She's not out partying or dealing drugs from your living room. She's reading. How is this so offensive to you? If this is such a big deal to you, I wonder what else you try to micromanage in her life? Leave her be, she's a grown-ass woman, and get your own hobbies so that you have less time to be concerned about hers.